All right, what's going on, people? I am once again but a disembodied voice on the wind. I'm waiting for my new webcam to arrive. It should be here later today. But Luke, we're getting down there, slowly but surely. Season 3, episode 16, One of Us, where finally, after deception, after deception, after deception, after many, many long weeks of being held captive by the others and maybe being on the other side, but really not, and instead you have somebody else who you think may be on our side, but is actually still secretly working for the others. I'm getting really confused by these alliances here, man. It's like I really feel like I'm in that one episode of a Community where it's like a double cross inside of a double cross inside of a double cross inside of it's like I can't keep track at this point. So, but we have like some progression on the plot after what felt like a major filler last week's episode where Juliet is officially joined the island survivors. Jack is all, peaches and cream, stars in the eyes. He's like, oh yeah, Juliet was left behind. Therefore, she's totally one of us. There's nothing at all suspicious about this move, right? Yeah, sure, buddy. At the very least, it's good to know that there's still some smart survivors, with them. With Saeed and Sawyer both rightfully not trusting Juliet, as we come to learn by the end.
It's kind of hard to tell when you might stop talking because it's just the freaking icon bouncing up and down, but we'll manage, I'm sure. But yeah, I really enjoyed this episode compared to last episode. Now I see that okay, we're back on track. We're gaining more momentum towards the finale. It just felt like good old school season 2 one lost because everyone's finally, well, almost everyone locked still with the others, but the main sort of essence, the Jack and Sawyer are back. They had a good best buddy hug on reunion on the beach. But of course, there's the big question of Juliet, because obviously everyone else doesn't trust her. Jack's the only one who's like, oh yes, she's absolutely trustworthy. So then the audience is thinking, oh yeah, she must be good. And then of course things play out. And I mean, is how I'm gaining the Lost formula better. I see that okay, Claire's sick, and Juliet's gonna have a chance to prove herself to the camp. But then they think, oh, everything's great. But typical Lost always has a zinger at the end, and I'm like, I don't know what to believe anymore. So
because if Jack says it must be
yeah.
so, right? It must be absolutely unquestioned. There must be no flaws with it, no issues with it at all. Yeah, not so much. But you were with the others for what? All of 5 seconds? Because as we come to discover Juliet's backstory, this episode, it kind of is the secondary, the completionary arc of her journey towards the island. Up until this point, it's been continued. She's been on this island for 3 years, and that made me ponder because so we know that the events of Lost begin in September of 2004, right? That's roughly when they start, right around roughly when the show started. And even though obviously the show progressed over the course of 8 years, we know that the first 3 seasons take place roughly within about 3 months because each season takes place over the course of about a month. And so that just made my brain, do its usual thing and wander off. So I'm like, wait, was Juliet here pre or post 9/11 is what I want to know. Like, that's like genuinely a serious question. Because you remember back in the Cost of Living when Jack was asking Ben all those questions about stuff that had happened off island. And he was like, oh yeah, the Red Sox won the World Series. And Jack's like, yeah, right. Get out of here. So I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, Juliet's
well, I do think it was. Do you remember when date the plane crash was? Like September 22nd?
It was September 22nd, I want to say.
Okay. Yeah. So then that bit where she says it's been 3 years, they were about to finish reading Carrie, and they had the book club meeting on the 22nd. So I guess she would have left like right after 9/11.
Yeah, I think so.
Something like that.
I think that's about it. Yeah, that sounds about right. But yeah, so she would have left like right on or just after 9/11. So like I said, we saw we saw obviously she decided to accept Richard's proposal all the way back in not in Portland, which feels like it was forever ago. And now we see kind of the after effects of the continued effects of everything where, she accepts the offer, her and her sister, who is now successfully, been impregnated despite her attempts. She, pulls up to the facility. She's greeted by Richard and Ethan. And then, she is successfully convinced by Richard to drink an orange juice filled to the brim with tranquilizers, which knocks her out almost.
They're so slimy and manipulative in the scenes. Like you have a choice. I'm like, but like, does she though?
Do they really? It's like, do they really? No, not one bit. She wakes up on the submarine. And she is greeted by Ben upon getting off and immediately is subjected to the other's mind games. And you immediately discover that the purpose for why she's been brought to the island is to discover why seemingly nobody can conceive and get pregnant and successfully carry a child to term on the island, at least up until Claire, which brings us to the A plot, of course, of the episode, which is Juliet's means in terms of infiltrating the group or so far gaining the group's trust, which is, of course, Claire is exhibiting symptoms of some strange illness. She immediately starts to fall violently ill, right coincidentally at the time that Juliet arrives. Again, no red flags there, or no eyebrows raised at all there. Just a complete coincidence there. And once again, Juliet is basically be like, oh, so this is from around the time when, Ethan had kidnapped Claire. We were taking samples of her blood because we were trying to study, we were trying to study, samples in order to determine if she'd be able to deliver the baby successfully. Unfortunately, of course, you guys discovered that Ethan was not one of you. So Ethan had to improvise. He wasn't supposed to kidnap Claire. That was a little bit of an exaggeration, but he's like, I've been giving Claire this vaccine essentially, and she's developed a on it, if you will. And so this violence, this illness that she's developed is a side effect of that. And I need to go into the jungle and get this medicine so that I can successfully treat her.
Yes, under this random ass tree.
Yes, under this random ass tree that's marked very neatly. So far, everything in her story is, of course, lining up. But of course, Saeed and Sawyer don't trust her at all. Right. Once again, rightfully so. They have those two, thankfully, still have the right instincts. Locke, like I said, is completely gone. He's gone with the others to wherever they've gone off to. So at what point were you wondering, like, okay, like how much of this is actually real versus how much of this is just like instructions from Ben? Because I mean, obviously, again, I have the benefit of hindsight, but it's one of those episodes where it can go either way. You're not quite sure exactly which side of the table she could fall on potentially.
Yeah, I don't know exactly when it was for me. I guess I thought about it more so after the episode. It just goes back to that her clear motivation. She wants to get off the island, and she knows that the others are far more capable of doing that than the survivors. So I think it all goes back to that. So so it was probably around the time when it was the Sawyer Saeed scene where she's like, "Hey, I know everything about you guys. You guys don't know anything about each other, but I know everything about you." I thought that was a pretty cool moment for her, that, oh, she's not completely helpless. She still has that edge to her from her knowledge with the others. So I'm excited to see where this goes when she gets found out, and how that affects Jack, because of course he's a big believer in her. So
yeah, she's certainly playing the long game, definitely. And I like how she can, once again, every time she feels like she's being cornered and every time she seems like she's at a disadvantage, she can always pull out, like, yeah, she's been with the others and she's been on this island for a long time. So she knows kind of all their tricks and tropes. She can always pull out like a random character backstory in order to diffuse them in case she needs to out of her back pocket. She can randomly take down Kate in a fight or somebody if she needs to. She's got a little bit of a little minx in her too. She was revealed to have been hooking up with Goodwin as well, who we know unfortunately is long dead by this point. I don't remember if and when Ben showed that to her, but Goodwin, that's shown as well. She's also shown experimenting, on different pregnant women, and despite her having no success and wanting to go home, Ben is seemingly forcing her to stay on the island at all, once again with many different mind games. First by telling her that her sister that her sister will be dead by the time she gets back because the cancer has returned, and then of course by revealing that randomly, miraculously, the cancer disappeared, and she's raising a healthy baby boy right around the time that she discovers his tumor, which of course contradicts his original claim when she first got there that nobody gets sick when they come to the island, which he of course himself believed, as we knew with Locke, that the island seemingly cures people of cancer, at least except for Ben. That's where the island seems to pick and choose. But what's interesting to me is, once again, how, like you were saying, Juliet is very much like, she is motivated entirely by self-interest. She has been on this island a long time. She wants to get off. She wants to go home. And that's why, again, she's going to, it makes it seem like she has common interest with Jack, but at the end of the day, she's going to do whatever she has to in order to seemingly get home. She's going to go with Jack, and she's also going to maybe be listening to Ben and be secretly in on an undercover mission infiltrating this group of survivors as well, under orders from Ben, as we see at the end of this episode, where after everything's gone according to plan, they've gone back to camp. She's given Claire the medicine. Claire's starting to feel better. Everything's seemingly getting better. it's revealed that, of course, this whole thing was an elaborate plan staged by Ben, where it's revealed that instead it was actually an implant that they had placed inside Claire that was timed to go off at exactly the same time that she got back to camp. That they all got back to camp, so that way she would be able to retrieve the contents of the case and gain their trust in order to diffuse, whatever was inside of Claire. So this was all an elaborately staged plan with Ben. But this does bring me back to the point about the contraception on the island, since that we know that's Juliet's reasoning for being there. It also kind of ties in with kind of where we're at in uncovering the long game of Lost, which is, we know certain things about the island's lore. Jacob's name has been mentioned a couple of times now, to the point where even Juliet knows about it. We know that the others, despite having basically supplanted Dharma, essentially, we know that there was an incident in which the others, wiped out the Dharma Initiative at one point. The origins of that will be revealed in a couple of episodes. The others have also seemingly taken over Dharma's experiments. One of them seeming to be, this idea of why pregnant women can't fully conceive to term on island, because the thing is that Claire is the first woman to have successfully given birth on the island. However, the thing is that Claire successfully conceived off island, as well. Same thing with Juliet's sister, who never went near the island. Now, of course, this does bring up the issue. There's another character on the island who we recently learned is pregnant as well.
Yeah.
That being Sun.
They have a full shot of her, like when Kate hears, when Julia's telling Kate the situation, Kate looks at Sun. He's like, "Oh, right."
Yeah.
It's just a reminder of the audience, because that hasn't been like relevant since it happened pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but now they're finding a way to loop that back in and be like, oh, okay, so this is going to be potentially like another serious issue. So I like, because this is something that I feel like has been alluded to as well, but this is the first time that it's like seriously being brought up, because like we knew that obviously Juliet was on the island for something related to fertility, just given her origin, but now we know the actual real reason, and we also get like a pretty emotional moment as well once we see, Ben reveal the camera footage. We get another scene with Mikhail at the flame. I love how we get to a certain point with the others, and like Ben is just like casually name dropping others. It's like, but we've spent so much time with them at this point now that we even have incorporated them kind of into our roundtable of characters. Like he mentions, like how does he know? He's like Mikhail. He just like headed up to the surface world and such. So
yeah, and we get a little tidbit of like, they're like looking for the plane. Like it's on the news and stuff. So like a little tidbit to the outside world is still happening, and they know that the plane went missing. It's not just in people's imagination. So I just like seeing the outside perspective on the island, as little as we do get it.
Yes, it is nice. Sure, don't worry,
we'll loop around with the Antarctic guys.
Yes, we will loop around with it and get back to it eventually. Don't worry, that signal was heard and was detected. Now we are still waiting to see who it was that heard and detected it. But as we keep saying, in terms of mysteries, tune in next week in order to find out. But like I said, we're getting closer. We are getting ever closer. And once we get to the season 3 finale by the end of this year, we get into season 4 next year, you're going to see a big shift in the trajectory of the show. I'm going to, again, this is the part that I was really looking forward to. All this past year and all of last year when we were recapping the first 3 seasons, it's all been set up. It's all been leading to this. So like I said, make sure you guys keep tuning in as we continue to cover, because it's only going to get more intricate and it's only going to get more detailed. Now, a couple more things to cover before we hop out of here. Next up, our recap of this week's episode of Pluribus. I guess you could say part 2 of our Talkin Lost recap is continuing to break down Vince Gilligan's new show on Apple TV Plus, which is, Vince Gilligan is one of those showrunners who I think deserves to have his shows examined week by week, which is something that I can't really say about majority of shows out there. But little bit of a step down, a little bit of a step back from last week's episode. I'll admit I was still in shock and awe at the presentation of the premiere of this show, that inevitably it always felt like this episode was going to be a step back in terms of, kind of exploring more of the dynamics, Carol's dynamics, her readjustment to the world in the wake of what I'm going to call the hive mind's takeover. And now that she has basically seen the survivors basically like make their peace in real time with the alien takeover, now it's kind of up to her in order to reckon with it. And while a very, very small set piece, we did get another very, very fun set piece in which she basically requests for the hive mind through her emissary, Zosha is what I'm going to call it, to basically restock her grocery store that was completely emptied. Like I said, little by little, we're learning more about how the hive mind functions. They are condensing supplies. They're rationing it out to those who desperately need it most. like I said, their inability to kill prevents them from creating new meats in order to in order to provide for grocery stores. And while Carol doesn't have another violent reaction, we do continue to see her once again attempting to rebel against the system, in which she's basically questioning, like, okay, so you keep saying my life is my own. You keep saying that I have the ability to, do whatever I want, but I am actively aware of the fact that you are working in real time to supplant my consciousness and make me a part of your hive mind. So, like, how am I supposed to function that way? And it results in a very, very entertaining Chekhov's grenade scene that may or may not have resulted in Zosha's death. So, what did you think of this episode of Pluribus?
Yeah, it was a bit of a slow down episode after two very eventful, high energy pilot episodes. Kind of a co-pilot because we had but they released two at a time. But this is kind of like adjusting to the new norm, I guess. That kind of episode. Like you said, there's the bit with the grocery store. I thought that was fun. Of course, the Chekhov's grenade. But I think my favorite scene was when she's like, "Hey, if I ask for a bazooka, will you give me a bazooka?" And she goes all the way up to a nuke, and the guy's like, "Well, yeah, I guess." So that I really enjoyed that. So yeah, again, not the most spectacular episode, but it's still good, and I'm excited to see where it goes and what the central kind of conflict of this particular season is going to be.
Yes, a couple of details of this episode that I wanted to point out as well. One, the opening sequence, which Vince Gilligan shows became iconic for their establishing opening set piece episodes. This time takes place 7 years prior to the takeover, when her and her significant other, I believe Helen was her name, was visited at a motel entirely made out of ice in Norway, which Carol seemed absolutely thrilled about. I love how once again continued to establish her character, that even when she was supposed to be on getaway vacations with her lover, all she could do was complain and focus on every bit of minutia. Granted, an ice fortress is not exactly my idea of a romantic getaway, but so it once again continues to establish how Carol is somebody who is independent to a fault, to a point where I don't know if she's capable of enjoying anything. However, it is once again just very amusing to see, like, kind of very rightfully placed anger and grievances, especially within the context of, a world where there was essentially no conflict and no arguments. So that's a fun little detail right there. The fact that this episode, Carol requests the hive mind to purge all memories or mentions of Helen ever, since they are consistently attempting to use Helen as a means of, disarming Carol and getting closer and more intimate to her, which Carol is very, very much against, understandably so, since she's still grieving Helen, because within the timeline of the show, I think it's only been like a day, not even, something like that, since Helen first passed, since initial takeover. I forgot how long it's been. It's been like maybe like 2 days, 3 days, something like that, since initial contact and takeover. The dude who she talked with on the plane, who is speaking to her entirely in Spanish, who she tried to call back multiple times but was frequently hanging up, because this dude is seemingly doing what she is incapable of doing. This dude's name is Manuso Oviedo, one of 13 people, one of the 13 people who was not infected by the hive mind, but one of the people who did not show up to the meeting in last week's episode. Again, speaks entirely in Spanish, does not speak in English at all. Carol's able to get some communication with him, but again, he's refusing to speak to the hive mind or anyone seemingly associated with the hive mind, which, if you ask me, is the right move to do. Because if you think about it, right, if you're communicating with this hive mind, you're actively knowledgeable about the fact that they are trying to make you a part of their hive mind, yet you continue to interact with them and you continue to conversate with them. It doesn't matter how resistant you are. Naturally, your own sense of empathy is going to eventually get the better of you. So by virtue of that fact, you are going to eventually end up empathizing with the invader, so much so that they will eventually find a way to disarm you. So in a way, complete resistance and complete, blockage and non-communication is kind of the only way to achieve that ultimately with these guys. So with that being said, that leads us kind of into the final sequence where, like I said, she is talking with the one dude, what's it called? The one dude in the hospital waiting for Zosha to recover, where she finally, to me, I think, does the smart, sensible thing, which is she asks the others to leave her alone. while she contemplates exactly what it is that she wants to do. Because like I said, if she wanted to continue to escalate conflict with these figures, she could if she really wanted to.
Yeah, there's few shows out these days that warrant this much conversation, theories, and things. But I just want to read a quote from Vince Gilligan about the show, which is like, okay, this guy gets what kind of show he's making. He said you'd want to be Mr. Diabate, but you're with all the lovely ladies, and then you're thinking Vladimir Putin's in there somewhere. You get that in your head, and it's not living the dream anymore. I thought that was just brilliant.
There's a reason why he's arguably the greatest showrunner of the last 20 years now. So yeah, I mean, come on, Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, now this show. Like, there are very, very few showrunners with that kind of a track record, and understandably so. So, like I said, it's a little bit of a slower episode, but definitely still worth checking out each week as we get closer to the finale. Also, a couple movies that dropped this weekend. Did you get a chance to see both of them?
I did not see Running Man yet.
Okay,
I'll go next week. But seeing that those reviews did deflate my excitement quite a bit.
So it's funny actually, because I actually quite enjoyed it, but I have noticed obviously it's the Edgar hive is definitely turned, but I have a feeling that part of that is just because part of those reviews are a subgroup of people that are still longing for the Cornetto trilogy days, which if you have been following Edgar Wright, you will know that like those days are very, very clearly long behind. Not only just him, but also Simon Pegg and Nick Frost as well, who have both moved on to other things. I mean, there's always a possibility that they could do another movie at some point, but I just think this idea that people are like longing for the Edgar of old is very much gone. Because I'll say this, as I still haven't been disappointed by any of the three films that he's made now post the Cornetto phase, which of course now started with Baby Driver in 2017, and then Last Night in Soho in 2021, and now this movie. So none of his movies have disappointed me. They're all still good. They're all still solid. It's just I always find that there's extenuating factors surrounding them that always kind of prevent them from achieving them being as good as they possibly could. Because, for example, Baby Driver was in and still is in my top 10 favorite movies of 2017. But given who the leads of and co-stars of that movie are, you know, it's naturally
one of the worst aged movies,
exactly,
in terms of casts ever.
It's safe to say that movie has garnered a reputation that very similar to The Usual Suspects, another movie that Kevin Spacey is in. It's garnered a reputation that ultimately has nothing to do with the quality of the movie, because I think it's safe to say that that's a very fairly entertaining and enjoyable action thriller, or rather just action comedy. And then Last Night in Soho just had the misfortune of opening in theaters in October of 2021, a year that nobody went and saw anything in the theaters except for Spider-Man No Way Home and maybe a few other Marvel movies that came out that year. So that's kind of what was going against those two movies. What's interesting about this one is ultimately the thing that this movie has going against it is ultimately, it ultimately to me has nothing to do with the quality inherently of the movie, because the quality's there. It's very fun. It's very enjoyable. It's very whip smart. It has the usual, very witty dialogue that is characteristic of most Edgar Wright movies. And then also, from what I've heard as well, I have not read the Stephen King novel. I assume that you have, considering that you've read a lot more Stephen King than I have. From what I've been told, it is much more faithful to the original novel than the Arnold original. The only difference being that they changed the ending, very understandably so, considering the fact that, the ending is known for that signature Stephen King nihilism that, just not only would movie studios not do something that nihilistic.
I don't think anyone
no movie studio is making a movie that ends with a dude flying a plane into a building. Like, that's not happening. I'm sorry. It's not happening in the year 2025. It's not happening in any movie that was released post 2001, ironically, going back to our Lost conversation, mentioning if Juliet was on the island pre or post 9/11. But so all of those things you got to take into account. And then as far as the rest of it goes, it's really solid, really fun, really entertaining. All the cast is great. They all understand the assignment. The fun little pop-up from Amelia Jones in the third act that I was not expecting, who people, if you were watching Task the last couple of weeks, will know who she is as Maeve Prendergast. The thing that this movie has going against it is ultimately the thing that almost every other movie that's come out this fall has going against it, which is that this fall movie season has just been a dud, ultimately. It feels like, I think with the exception of One Battle After Another has a lot of good Oscar buzz going for it, but it feels like every single movie that's come out so far this fall has flopped. Like, you look at movies like Roofman, Shelby Oaks, Tron Ares, Good Fortune, Smashing Machine, Black Phone 2, almost every single movie that's come out in the last 2 months that is primarily comprised of fall season has underperformed. Roofman, another example, has underperformed. Ironically, the other movie that I saw this past weekend, Now You See Me 3, is probably set to do more money than all of those movies, which is hysterical when you consider that unlike The Running Man, which is very much a fully complete auteurist vision from a director who very much has an idea that is very relevant towards today, that movie is barely functions as a movie. It solely coasts by on nostalgia and cast chemistry. So I think it's really funny when you consider that for a movie that has a bunch of negative reviews going towards it, the only thing that really, to me, is the most major thing that it has going against it is it's just opening and possibly the worst fall season that I've ever seen for movies.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't have the momentum of other movies to help it along. If there were a few real bangers, again,
Right.
it's like in terms of like a bunch of awards movies are coming out that I have not
Right.
seen because they're not coming out here, obviously. In terms of blockbuster, we had Predators, and that had a pretty good opening, but that's
Predators is doing well,
yeah,
and then
that's
one
just
exception.
one in like 2.5 months or so that has made me like significant game. Where you had Black Phone too, that was all right, but that's horror. They'd never make that much money
Exactly.
anyway. So
Horror
this
will always
one,
make its money back because of the micro budgets.
yeah, exactly. And what now we're gonna have Wicked. That's probably gonna make a lot. And
Wicked
then
will be a hit. Zootopia 2
Yeah.
will be a hit. Avatar, we know, will be a hit. But
Yeah.
it's just been dud after dud after dud this fall movie season. You know, at the very least, we'll always get like, I feel like one set of, I mean, because I feel like last year in October we got at least like, but then again, now that I think about it, last year October, it was also around this time, it was also kind of the same thing, kind of the same narrative, where September and October were again just dud after dud after dud. I mean, we saw some good movies during those months, but it really wasn't until Wicked came out last Thanksgiving that the fall movie season really took off. And I feel like, again, that's kind of, unfortunately, the new movie narrative, which is where you get your blockbusters through July, and then August through October, you really don't get any like major massive hits anymore. You know, you really don't. It's not until the holiday season with November and December, you know, like when you eventize it. Like, it's just continuing in the path and trajectory forward of movies, which is that it feels like outside of like very, very specific spots, which are not even the specific spots that Hollywood used to be able to confidently open a movie in. You know, the first weekend of May, as we know, is not a reliable money-making slot for them anymore, considering the fact that the two movies that have opened there in the last 2 years have underperformed now with both Thunderbolts and The Fall Guy. So yeah, you really don't even know what the slots are that are going to make money as far as that goes. You know, like what was the big summer blockbuster this past year? One could argue that there wasn't one because the event movie of the year was a Netflix movie, was K-pop Demon Hunters. So it really is one of those things where it's once again, and we'll talk more about this once we do our year-end wrap-up podcast, but it once again continues to be a fascinating part of the conversation, how more than ever it feels like box office dictates kind of the reputation that movies are going to have going forward, except for like occasionally a few that break through in terms of quality. But even this year, like we are constantly talking about how much the movies are back, but it feels like all of my favorite movies this year so far, I either saw at a film festival or were like the big kind of preordained movie events that ended up happening. You know, your Sinners, your Weapons, your One Battle After Another, you know, your K-pop Demon Hunters and such. So
yeah. Again, I think it's that sort of not quite disconnect, but difference between people like us and the general audience. Like in the general audience, they will go see The Conjuring 4 and make it like the highest grossing horror movie of all time or something. But will they go see One Battle After Another? They will see, but not as many will go see it. So it's things like that.
Yeah.
And they will see the Disney remakes, and they will keep making them. But yeah, it's frustrating. The general audiences, they are the main fuel of the industry and their greatest sort of poison, I guess.
Exactly.
So,
well, poison to people like us, I should say. That real quick. So you saw Now You Three Me.
I did not see.
Oh, you did not see that.
I will say, to our conversation, we did get a first look at the movie that will save theaters next July with the Odyssey.
With the Odyssey.
first few images. I'm like,
Okay,
oof,
yeah, it's
where's the trailer?
where's the trailer? Just give us the full trailer at this point. Like, oh man, I can't wait. I just can't wait for the runtime to be announced for that. And it's Christopher Nolan's longest movie, and everybody's gonna bitch and moan about how long it is. Then
Well, they
everybody's
just
gonna
said
go and see it in
Avatar's
theaters.
3 hours 15. So I
Yeah,
think
but we all know that that doesn't mean shit. We all know that that doesn't mean shit. Like, because it was the same thing. Like, I love how, because the thing is, right, is that Cameron is such an angst lord that he's automatically gonna, like, the minute that he, like, this is why I love Cameron so much, is he's gonna be that asshole that comes out and just be like, yeah, all you assholes that complain about the length of my movies, but you'll binge watch 8 hours of Stranger Things back to back, 8+ because the fucking 4th season is like has comprised of like 2 feature-length movies as its final 2 episodes. He's like, go fuck yourselves, essentially, which I love that. I love how he's the same dude that will literally, when he's haggling over budget with producers and executives, he'll literally look, he's like, you see this office we're sitting in? Titanic helped pay for this office. Fuck you, pay me. Like, I love James Cameron so much. So, but Nolan, is a little bit quieter, and how people will take any excuse. But also, I wonder, is the complaints about movie length, is that even still a thing? Because I feel like that conversation has kind of quieted down now, since some of the biggest and most successful movies of the decade have been some of the longest as well, especially since you also have that psychopath, my birthday twin, Brady Corbet, the director of The Brutalist, announced his next movie is going to be even longer than The Brutalist, or sorry, roughly around the same length as The Brutalist, which was 3.5 hours, and is going to be set over the course of 150 years, which I'm like, okay, you're just a maniac. You're just an absolute maniac at this point.
I think they've just gotten better at making them long and good, with the exception of like it's called Final Reckoning. That did not need to be that as long as it was.
Yeah, but I don't know if there was
even I'm admitting that.
But I don't know if I would have cut it. I mean, yeah, that first hour was a little long, but I'm telling you, once we get to that submarine sequence,
everything after the submarine is great.
Man.
If you cut 5-10 minutes out of
the final byplay sequence is a little long. You could have cut that.
No, I don't know. No, you couldn't have cut that. We could have cut something at the start. But anyway, yeah. I think Odyssey, yeah. 2 million feet of film. That's 37 miles. So
that's crazy. That's crazy. I wonder if it runs like the length of that beach that they were shooting on.
Probably.
Yeah. But yeah, real quick, the last thing I'll say before we get out of here. Now You See Me 3 is one of the silliest and most ridiculous movies that I've ever seen. It barely functions as a movie. The plot, if you even want to call it that, is ludicrous even by this franchise's standards, which, again, this franchise has never exactly been strong on plot. They're very much vibe hangout movies, and that's part of the reason why I love them, and that's part of the reason why I love this movie, because let me tell you something, I had a big old smile on my face the whole time. This movie is capitalizing on its nostalgia of the franchise that it apparently didn't even realize that there was. I was so happy to have not only the 4 Horsemen back, but all of the returning faces, because not only did we get Jesse Eisenberg as J. Daniel Atlas, Isla Fisher as Henley Reeves, Dave Franco as Jack Wilder, and Woody Harrelson as Merritt McKinney back. We also got
the fact that you know all of their full names.
I don't think you quite understand how much I love that fucking first movie and how much I watched that first movie on repeat. Like, they caught lightning in a bottle with that first movie. Like, I still cannot express just how utterly silly, how utterly absurd, and how utterly awesome that movie is. We're not talking about the second one. The second one doesn't exist. It's still hysterical to me that John M. Chu went from Now You See Me 2 to directing Crazy Rich Asians, In the Heights, and both Wicked movies, all back to back. That is one of the funniest, probably the funniest career trajectory in Hollywood that I have ever seen. This one's directed by Ruben Fleischer, who just came off of the first Venom and Zombieland double tap. And I think he had something else in the last couple of years, but this made me very, very happy. This was much more so back in his wheelhouse. The new cast, I think the thing that I wrote in my review about this movie is that the new cast, which is comprised of Dominic Sessa, Justice Smith, and Ariana Greenblatt, could all use acting coaches. Consider the fact that Ariana Greenblatt is somebody that only rose to fame playing younger versions of like iconic female characters in Disney franchises, playing both young Gamora in Avengers Infinity War and young Ahsoka in the first season of Ahsoka, before having sort of a breakout role with the Barbie movie. And it's so weird to me because, this is where I'm going to get a little weird, but this girl is 10 years and 10 days younger than me. I'm not joking. This girl was born on August 27th, 2007. I was born on August 17th, 1997. So that's already fucking with my brain to begin with. And Dominic Sessa is 23. Justice Smith is 30. So the fact, and despite the fact that Ariana Greenblatt just turned 18, she was 16, 17 during the course of this filming. So I'm still like just wrapping my brain around that. The fact that I am seeing a 17-year-old interact with like all fully adults. Like everybody here is minimum like several, like at least almost a decade older than her. And then you have the original Four Horsemen, which I have one of those things where I'm having one of those things where it's like when I see stars return to a franchise that I love, from when I was like not like young, but like high school, and like seeing how old they're even getting. Like so Dave Franco is 40, Jesse Eisenberg is 43, Isla Fisher is almost 50. She's gonna be 50 next year because she's been doing this that long, and Woody Harrelson is 64. So that already is kind of like breaking my brain as far as like people who I still consider like relatively young are now like getting old, like up there. And then you have, again, so some other franchise mainstays. Unfortunately, we don't get Michael Caine back. Michael Caine is retired, except for when his good friend Vin Diesel calls him to appear in The Last Witch Hunter 2, which is hysterical. And then you have Morgan Freeman show up for one scene, does a magic trick, gets shot, and then has one of the funniest, like, you have to continue this on now. You have to beat the bad guys as he slowly dies in front of them. And it has probably one of the funniest looking towards the camera. He basically may as well be holding up his middle finger being like, fuck you, I still got paid looks on him. It's one of the funniest things. Like, I was so happy. And like, I'm telling you, like, as ridiculous as this movie is, if you've seen these movies, if you see the Now You See Me franchise, you know exactly what you're in for. It's just awesome. It's just totally vibes. It's totally hangout. It's totally all about the hangout. It's absolutely ridiculous. Rosamund Pike is the bad guy in this. She's playing the Bond villain that she thought she was playing in Die Another Day before that movie completely fucked her over the way that it fucked over everybody involved. My whole thing is, if you're going to see this movie, don't you dare try to criticize it, because unless you're a fan of this franchise, this movie and this franchise is not for you. It's the same thing that I said about Tron Ares. I'm like, yeah, are these movies good? No. But again, I'm not watching this for anything else other than me. Like, the filmmakers, I'm hoping, understood the assignment. And thankfully, this is twice now where they did both times.
Is Mark Ruffalo in it? I mean,
he is. And let me tell you something.
Yes.
Let me tell you something. They do exactly the same thing with him in this movie that they did in the first Shang-Chi. Enough said.
Oh, in the Shang-Chi, I'm like, okay. Yeah. Okay. So is there a future for this?
Yes, there is, because his role in this movie is he has essentially become the Samuel L. Jackson of this franchise, which is even funnier considering that that Samuel L. Jackson just popped up on this on today's episode of Tulsa King, which I watched at like 5 a.m. this morning, because when I found out that Sam Jackson, who had been rumored to finally be coming on Tulsa King, was finally coming on, and I find out that it's a classic case that I love about those types of old people franchises, where he's a hitman that's contracted out by New York to kill Sylvester Stallone, but because Sylvester Stallone's character, but because Sylvester Stallone saved his life 20 years ago in jail, he instead gives him a courtesy call, and the two of them then team up in order to kill the assassins that have been sent to now kill both of them, old man style. I love this fucking show. This show is absolutely insane, and you would love it.
Yeah, I guess I'll also take a minute to say what I've been watching. I've been catching up on Gen V. It is the most okay show of all time.
This season specifically.
It's like,
yes.
Like it's not gonna be great. It's not gonna be bad either. It's absolutely okay.
Yes.
Like, and that's its absolute ceiling. So
yes.
I think I'm two or three episodes in.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just watching it because I know it'll improve season 5 of The Boys for me. And
that's the other thing too, real quick. Yeah. I love how Gen V solely exists as a means of like basically filler material in between seasons of The Boys, and how they essentially had like a whole way of taking down Homelander, and then it all got screwed up because Ethan Slater is ultimately a control freak. That's literally the crippling thing that took down Gen V, and now they're trying to justify bringing it back for season 3. But I'm like, where do we go? Presumably,
you're already doing the show with the Soldier Boy and Stormfront.
Yeah. And the Boys Mexico spinoff. It's like we don't need another season of this. We really don't.
Yeah, and my Welcome to Derry weekly update. So this is a classic case of writers thinking they're better than Stephen King, which good luck with that, because they're doing the Losers Club again, but like worse. and the plot that I'm more interested in, because it's like something new, is the U.S. Army trying to catch Pennywise and use him as a weapon against.
See, that sounds awesome.
Against the Soviets. I'm like, yes, it sounds ridiculous, but it sounds interesting.
What are you talking about? That sounds perfectly in line with something the U.S. Army would do. Try to capture something that's completely out of their control, and use it as a weapon against the Soviets in a Cold War era. That's perfectly in line with them.
And they're bringing in freaking Dick Halloran from The Shining as like a main character, which I'm like, okay, let's do that plot. But they're taking like so long to get there, and there's some of the scare scenes are pretty terrible, especially CGI wise. I know it's a TV production, but it's still HBO. You make House of the Dragon, I would expect better. So
yeah, but their budgets have been shrinking recently.
I would imagine so, because the company is up for sale.
Yeah,
right?
Who
So
do you think is going to buy them out?
I hope it's Paramount, I guess, because they're the most
I don't know.
cinematic one.
Let's see. The choices are Paramount, Netflix, or Universal.
Oh,
Wow,
Universal as well.
what a great selection of choices right there.
Yeah, I think I imagine Apple. They just like sent over like a big check. What Apple's production could do with all the IP they have.
Yeah, Apple. I don't know because
They're too really focused on their thing.
yeah,
Like
they're
it's
really
really
focused on
quality
establishing
over
their
anything
brand.
over
Yeah,
there.
exactly. Yeah, that's what Apple's really trying to establish. They're really trying to prove that, like, look, we can be ourselves. We don't have to team up with because remember they had that option because I think there was a rumor floating around earlier this year that they had a chance to pick up Disney. So like
I think that rumor's very old.
I mean that rumor is fairly quashed, but I'm saying like that's kind of what proved that they were never going to be serious bidders for Warner Brothers because that proved then that they are very, very committed to doing their own thing.
So yeah. Oh, it's very not great. People online seem to think it is. I don't get it.
Yeah, but you stick anything Stephen King related and anything with that crazy imagery. Like if it's anything like that pilot episode, like it doesn't show like a woman like basically giving birth to Pennywise in the car in the pilot episode. And that's basically what happens.
Kind of. And in the second episode, this girl like there's a sort of scare birth scene where a girl I can't even describe it. You have to watch it. It's quite gruesome.
I will not.
It's quite gruesome, but it doesn't like add anything.
Yeah, it's shock value for shock value's sake. Got it.
Yeah, and we haven't even seen an inkling of the clown in 3 episodes. I'm like,
shocker.
I know Bill Skarsgård is probably like expensive for this kind of production.
Very, very expensive for this.
Like, come on. Yeah. And they want to stretch this out for 3 seasons. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
no, don't do that.
Exactly.
But they're basing it off all the interludes in the book, which is fair enough. It's probably the best part of the book.
Yeah.
But that's like they focus on one event, and if each season is going to build up to that one event, it's like
it's like guys, well, you're trying to get like multiple seasons out of this. Just do one episode. But no, they have to find a way to continue to milk it out for.
If they did one season, which it was like 3 episodes in each era, bang, that's great.
I still think the biggest missed opportunity of coming out of the COVID era is not getting what I would like to call, and this is something that Chris and I talked about during when we were, recapping every Disney Plus show that was dropping during COVID, Mandalorian, all the Marvel shows are, basically when they were trying to do, it was the height of them trying to do like movies as extended, like 6-episode miniseries.
Oh, and like the Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah, exactly. And one of my biggest complaints about that is why, as part of their programming, they did not get what I like to call content curation specialists, which is basically kind of determining how many seasons, how many episodes each TV show should be designed for, and also then figuring out whether they should be dropped week to week style or whether they should be dropped all at once. And none of this in between bullshit, dropping a couple episodes at certain points of the year like Netflix does. And I still think that's the biggest missed opportunity. And as we continue to go on, now that we're well past the COVID era into this weird post-COVID streaming era of TV, I still think that continues to be a necessity because I personally think that, I know obviously ratings are still a big reason as to why they continue to greenlight more shows of TV, but I personally think that it would limit the amount of seasons that we get per TV shows. It would limit the amount of excess that we would get from certain TV shows. And it would also kind of, I think, provide for more opportunity and growth amongst the TV space and allow for continued experimentation, which for me would allow for it to continue to thrive and succeed in a way that I personally feel like it is not doing now. I feel like they've once again, like the film industry, taken all of the wrong lessons. They are continuing to funnel all this money into these gigantic projects that then get people really excited, that then completely fizzle out and lose steam because they inevitably take 2 to 3 years to come back because they keep hiring all these very busy movie stars that they have to negotiate around their schedules for and getting these massive budgets for, of course, where that works for something like Pluribus is the fact that has no movie stars because with the exception of Rhea Seehorn, nobody else is a star in that. And, and it just goes into like the fact that we need more creativity and more ingenuity. And the fact that the television model seems to be going backwards and we seem to be having, networks like HBO and Paramount funnel more money into shows like The Pitt, which is as much as I enjoyed The Pitt, that is not the type of show that I want to make a comeback ultimately. The whole set in one setting kind of standard, big 3 reliable shows when it comes to TV. Like I said, it's medical dramas, legal dramas, and police procedurals, like those are the types of shows that are kind of the staples of television, and those are the three types of mediums that I do not want to come back. What personally, ironically, if we're talking about like old school traditional TV, the shows that I do want to make a comeback are like more sitcoms and more experimenting on like actual real comedies, not like these weird dramedies like The Bear, you know. But once again, it just shows that, you know, things that I want, which I think could potentially continue to push the medium forward and make it more interesting as time goes on, just does not seem to be happening. So
Yeah, where I'd say the pit strives, it's like so tightly written and it's like so character focused. It's like a unique thing of like 15 hours in real time. It's like I
yes,
haven't seen that done before. So yeah, I think Pit is a very rare exception among the medical
yes,
dramas. But yeah, like you said, those three are very reliable. Those will keep getting made forever because
exactly.
it's so easy to make.
Exactly. Yeah. And like I said, my
Yeah.
worry is that, and I also talked about this as well, is for me, the Pit winning best drama at the Emmys over Severance is very, very telling to me of the direction that TV just wants to go in. The fact that they are rewarding shows like that, which again are, for lack of a better word, just kind of the same old, but different, as opposed to something like Severance, which was very groundbreaking, which was very different, which was very much like kind of, you know, this, this massive mystery box show with all of these different layers to it, with all of these massively complex performances and characters.
Only we had one in the 2000s, which was
Yeah. Yeah.
which was
Oh,
even
wait.
better.
Yeah, and it did win a bunch of Emmys, and it was like the most successful and most watched show on the air. But because everybody bitched and complained about the finale, they tried staying away from those shows and just continued to focus on, you know, more procedurals about angry white men, you know, raging against the world. But we're not going to talk about that here. But yeah, so it greatly worries me, you know, the amount of TV, and also just the fact that the amount of TV that they just make now that just looks bland and uninteresting, you know. And it's to a point where like you get all of these like kind of, you know, based on like family scandal dramas that go right to Peacock. And I'm just sitting there being like, who is watching these shows? Like, outside of like someone's bored, you know, mom who just like has nothing to, who like just has
And
nothing
I think
to do.
there's a lot more bored moms than we may realize.
Yeah.
In that case,
Yeah.
it's like they keep making them. Like clearly, people are watching them. We don't really know anyone who's watching them, but they're out there.
And hey, at this point, with AI coming for everybody in the entertainment industry and
yeah.
jobs, it's just nice to, you know, continue to have this stuff as we continue to narrate, you know, the death of the industry, which is what I'm realizing is more and more the narrative of the 2020s. Unfortunately, you know, it started with COVID, then the strikes, and now AI. So it's, as we continue to narrate the inherent death of our favorite medium, at the very least, we continue to have fun talking about, you know, different shows like this. So, with that very joyous note, where can the good people follow you on the interwebs, Luke?
They can follow me at Luke Reviews on YouTube. Yeah. New video January. That's all I can say. Like top 10. Like, should be a good one.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm in the edit on this short film that I've been working on. And yeah, that's pretty much what I'll be doing up until the end of the year, ultimately. And you guys can follow me with everything going on at Movie Nerd Reviews across all platforms, at Official Talkin TV Podcast across all platforms. Make sure to tune in later today when Dustin and I go live with our next Actors Hall of Fame. We're doing Josh Brolin today, one who I am very, very excited about, one who I've been looking forward to for a long time. But in the meantime, people, 12 seasons in a short film, and get lost. And check out my merch